It's not fair, you always get everything. This has been Emily's favorite line. My favorite toys, my cherished dolls. Emily took or broke them all using that very line. She lied to sever my close relationships. She used tears to paint me as the villain. Caused scenes, creating trouble for everyone. The list of her wrongdoings is endless. If things didn't go her way, she'd break stuff and lash out at everyone. Because of this, our parents always forced me to be the patient one and never really tried to correct Emily's behavior. I sometimes think this only encouraged her nature. Emily always looked down on me, wanting to feel superior. She's obsessed with that idea. So much so that she moved close to me just for that purpose. It's not fair, you get to marry such a wonderful person. Emily used her tricks on my husband, a doctor. She had an affair with him while I was away, lied to make me look bad, and took satisfaction in stealing him from me. It was the same old trick, but the most hurtful thing was my husband betraying me and believing Emily. Eventually, I chose to divorce. I quit my job and lived away from Emily, but about a year after my divorce, she called. I had a baby. So come over with a baby shower gift to celebrate. Sure, I'll come with my husband, a lawyer. What? A lawyer? Emily hadn't changed a bit. She still tries to look down on me, wanting to feel superior. She wouldn't hesitate to hurt anyone for that. That's something I can never forgive. So, I need to make sure this never happens again. I have the right to ask for compensation. I'm Sarah, 32-year-old woman. I am working as a nurse in a general hospital's internal medicine ward. I attended the attached university and worked here for about 10 years to have my student loans forgiven. That period is over, and I'm not obliged to stay here, so I'm considering changing jobs. Because I have a younger sister, Emily, who started working at the same hospital as a medical assistant. She's 28, 4 years younger than me. Ever since we were kids, she's done anything to feel superior to me. It's not fair, you always get everything. That's always been Emily's line. All the dolls and toys I had were either taken or destroyed by Emily. Moreover, once she realized she could win adults over with tears, she would immediately start crying whenever something happened, making me out to be the villain. Emily has a cute appearance, which sometimes makes her seem weaker than me, and this works in her favor. Lying is a daily routine for her, and her lies often put me in a bad spot, which seems to be her preferred situation. It's not the first or second time that someone close to me believed Emily's lies and drifted away. Her lies are so convincing that many people are easily deceived. For someone who knows the truth like me, it's absurd, but people seem to believe whatever Emily says. If Emily had become a con artist, she might have been a major villain. I guess she should be glad she chose a legitimate job. However, sometimes Emily's plans don't go well, and her lies are exposed to our parents or my friends. When she realizes she's in the wrong, Emily turns into a tyrant. If our parents take my side, she becomes hysterical, crying, screaming, and breaking things in the house. As a result of this repeated behavior, our exhausted parents started telling me, "You're the older one, so just be patient." I never understood why I had to tolerate everything and follow Emily's whims. Honestly, I still can't feel positively about our parents. It was really tough when a friend tried to calm Emily down. This happened when I was in my junior year of high school. A friend who realized Emily's true nature told her, "You're old enough to know better. Stop lying and using tears to get your way." It was a perfectly reasonable thing to say, and she wasn't even scolding her harshly. But for Emily, it was deeply unpleasant. One day, she suddenly showed up at that friend's house, sat down at the front door, and started crying and shouting, "I was wrong, please stop. I won't talk to you or my sister ever again. Please." Of course, the neighbors could hear everything, and if anyone tried to touch Emily to get her to stand up, she would scream, "Ouch. Stop it." My friend was very sensible and ended up calling the police. The involvement of law enforcement finally made Emily behave, but since she was only in the 6th grade at the time, the police gave our parents a stern warning. When things didn't go her way, Emily continued her tantrums, and for some reason, I was the one who got a scolding from our parents for provoking Emily. I just felt terribly sorry for causing trouble for my friend. I had a few friends who knew Emily's true nature, and they always encouraged me. I think I was able to survive in that house because of them. So, I decided to distance myself from Emily as much as possible. The first step was to move away from home. I chose a university affiliated with this hospital, far from home, convinced my parents to let me go by saying I would get a scholarship that essentially didn't need to be repaid, and succeeded in moving away by saying I was too busy with practice and studies to stay in the dorms. Since then, I've hardly returned home. I was leading a busy but fulfilling life, but this year, Emily started working at this hospital. She came to the nurses' station and acted sweetly, saying, "I'm so happy to work with my sister." But the experienced nurses, who are well aware of the ways of the world, saw through her act. They realized she was suspicious, which gave me a chance to explain my relationship with Emily and get a sort of pardon from having to interact with the administrative department. I'm grateful for that. I really don't want anything to do with Emily. I don't know what might happen if we interact, and I don't want her to know anything about my work or personal life. That's why I'm seriously considering changing jobs now. Sarah, are you sure you don't want a wedding ceremony? My husband, Aiden, asked me as we were having a quiet dinner at home. Yeah, I'm just not interested. Sarah, you have such a great figure, you'd look stunning in a dress. I don't want to stand out. Aiden and I got married last month. After dating for about half a year, he proposed and we quickly tied the knot. Aiden, a doctor in the same internal medicine ward, is 37 years old. He's popular with patients thanks to his refreshing smile and kind demeanor, and he's well regarded by the nurses for his gentle approach. I had a good impression of him too, so when he asked me out, I was pretty thrilled. Do you want to keep it low-key because of your sister? I had told him everything about Emily when we decided to get married. I wanted as little contact with her as possible. I didn't want her to know about our marriage. Neither did Aiden want any contact with Emily. We just didn't know what could happen. Aiden listened to my story but didn't seem to fully grasp it. He has a sister and a brother himself and enjoys a very good relationship with them, so maybe he can't understand the situation between Emily and me. Yeah, something like that. But, since she's at the same workplace, maybe you should tell her. No, really, there's no need. You're sisters, I think she'd be happy for you. In my mind, I knew the moment she found out, she would start plotting. That's why I decided not to have a wedding ceremony. The marriage announcement was only made to my parents during a meetup outside, and I made them promise not to tell Emily. They know Emily's character and probably won't say anything. My parents told me that Emily tried to get into the same university as me but couldn't because of her grades. Now that she's entered the same hospital as me, my parents seemed a bit worried, but their relief at not having to deal with Emily anymore was apparent. They must be relieved that she started living alone and left the family home. In the hospital, Aiden and I use different last names, and I don't wear my ring at work. We haven't made a big deal about our marriage, so many people probably don't know. It's a large hospital, and it's common not to recognize staff you don't interact with, so I doubt it will become a topic of gossip. It's better this way, unknown. It's also to protect Aiden. But then... Sarah. Why? Don't be so secretive, sis. In front of the medical office, Emily and Aiden were talking together. Why are these two together? Aiden, my brother-in-law, came to tell me himself that you guys got married. Despite my insistence not to tell her. Despite explaining our relationship. Despite him knowing what I've been through because of Emily. Seeing her so happy, you've got a sweet sister. We're two sisters, so I'm thrilled to have a brother-in-law. Emily cooed, gazing at Aiden. A chill ran down my spine at the sight. It was an ominous feeling. I had realized through our conversations that Aiden harbored a belief deep down that since she's a blood-related sister, They must be able to get along despite some misunderstandings. But I never expected him to do something like this. Congratulations, big sister. Let's go out for a meal again. I'll treat you to celebrate. Thank you. Emily, smiling broadly, appeared as if a younger sister warmly congratulating her elder sibling. Though I knew Emily and I had never dined together and she would never genuinely wish me well. She was probably fuming inside, behind that smile. Still, I decided to end the conversation with a harmless response. I didn't want to cause a scene at work, and I didn't want to involve others who might become victims of Emily's manipulations. I have work to do, so I'll be going. I decided to leave the scene. I just don't want to be in the same space as Emily anymore. I hoped nothing would happen, a silent prayer in my heart as I walked away. It had been a few months since Aiden and I got married. Recently, I'd noticed something off about him. A kind of coldness, a bad mood. It was a disturbing feeling. Then, one day after a night shift, I received a message from Aiden on my phone. There was no text, just one photo. It showed Aiden, half naked in our bed, sleeping, with Emily smiling in his arms. I was struck. It must be Emily's challenge to me. I suppose she is showing me what they were doing in our house. By knowing I'd be finishing my shift soon, I quickly changed and hurried home. I expected them to be there. As I entered the house, I found Aiden and Emily in the living room. They were dressed, but Aiden looked pathetically flustered. What are you trying to do, Emily? I can predict Emily's actions, but I never really understand her thoughts. I'm half resigned to not understanding this time either, but I still want an explanation. It's not fair, you get to marry such a wonderful person. Emily whined, snuggling into Aiden's arm. There it was again, her typical "it's not fair" sister. And I thought it was sad if Aiden was being deceived, so I had to tell him. The mention of deception confirmed my worst fears. It was a pattern I had seen countless times before. You're always lying about me bullying you, right, sis? Making yourself look weak and vulnerable. I've always told you to stop doing that. Emily, as if speaking the truth, lied with the ease and skill of an award-winning actress. Her ability to fabricate stories and act them out was frighteningly quick and convincing. Sarah, I never thought you were that kind of person, Aiden said. Here we go again. In the end, he's just like all the other men I've known. I feel betrayed by you. That's my line. What? I muttered under my breath, but it seemed Aiden didn't hear it. Does he really think he's the one who's been betrayed? Despite my clear instructions not to tell my sister. Despite not believing in me and believing my sister's lies. Despite having an affair with my sister after being tempted by her. You both know what you did. While Aiden looked shamefaced, Emily seemed to be ignoring me, inspecting her nails. Adultery during marriage, right, Aiden? I asked, but he remained silent. And you, Emily? If you mean an affair, then yeah. Aiden said he finds me cuter and loves me more. When I asked the one who was willing to talk, they provided a clear explanation. Her explanation was perfectly articulated, showcasing her genius in manipulation. Emily, no. Come on, Aiden. You said that having me was enough for you. Aiden seemed panicked, but he didn't push away Emily, who was clinging to him. I'm filing for divorce. The next moment I declared, I didn't miss the twisted smile on Emily's face. This must have been her goal. She couldn't stand the thought of me, whom she looked down upon, being married to a doctor. So, she took Aiden away, much like she used to take my toys. Aiden probably didn't realize this. Aiden, you have work, don't you? Come back immediately after your shift. We'll sign the divorce papers. Okay. Aiden then left with Emily, and I went to the city office to get the divorce papers. Tired from the night shift and now this. I was furious and hurt by the betrayal. Doctors are prone to affairs, they say, but with Emily, of all people? It's heartbreaking and infuriating that he believed her over me. This time, I'm truly exhausted. My heart is weary. Struggling to gather myself in the face of such a disheartening situation, I resolved to do what needed to be done. When Aiden returned home that night, I greeted him with the divorce papers already laid out, ready for his signature. My portion was completely filled in. He started with "I'm sorry" and "Are you sure?" but I ignored all of it. His words weren't worth hearing. I watched him write slowly, making sure there were no omissions before snatching the completed divorce papers from him. I planned to submit them first thing in the morning. "You have 2 weeks to move out, Aiden. Go stay with Emily or something." "What?" "It's only fair, given that your affair is the reason for this. In fact, you should be grateful I'm only asking for 2 weeks. This way, I could prepare my new life alone in this house without having to see him. Now, please leave." "Now?" "Of course. Come back after 2 weeks, with Emily if you like." After ushering Aiden out, I immediately blocked all communication from him and Emily. I decided to take a shower and then go to bed. Exhausted. Tomorrow would be busy, and I needed to rest. The next morning, I submitted the divorce papers at the city office. And then I went to work, where I used up all my accrued leave before informing HR of my decision to resign. I told them the whole truth about my divorce due to Aiden's affair with my sister Emily and the significant emotional toll it took on me. This would ensure they wouldn't try to persuade me to stay. Whatever reputation Aiden and Emily might earn in the hospital after this was none of my concern. I also started looking for a new home and decided to focus on my hobbies during this break. I'm passionate about bouldering and had been going to a bouldering gym at least once a week. I decided to fully enjoy this activity during my time off. Sweating it out in my free time helped clear my mind, and I began to think about making those 2 adults take responsibility for their actions. After all, I was not at fault in any of this. No need to suffer in silence. I have every right to take action, I thought. First, I need a lawyer. I climbed the bouldering holds, planning my next steps. A year after the divorce, I received a call from my parents' home. Wondering what it was about, I answered the call and heard Emily's voice. "Hey, big sis?" So, It had been a year since I last heard it. "I had a baby, a super cute boy. Oh, and I married Aiden. So come over with a baby shower gift, we're at our parents' house right now." Emily was talking one-sidedly. I had blocked both her and Aiden, so they couldn't contact me directly and had resorted to using our parents' phone. She seemed delighted, thinking that marrying Aiden and having his child would hurt me. Her unabashed demand for a baby shower gift, without any remorse, made me sigh, realizing she hadn't changed at all. Despite the sigh that escaped my lips, a smile formed at the corners of my mouth. "Sure. I'll let Aiden know too. I'll be coming with my husband." "What? A lawyer?" Emily's voice dropped, clearly taken aback. Indeed, she had no idea that I had remarried, let alone to a lawyer. "How about in 2 weeks? You'll still be at our parents' home, right?" "Yeah, I'm at home. I did a hometown return for the birth. Mom and Dad are so in love with the baby, they don't want me to leave," Emily said, trying to hide her agitation. She must be frustrated that I remarried, especially to a lawyer. She probably imagined me living a lonely life. "I'm expecting a nice baby shower gift, you know," Emily said before hanging up. Her brazen attitude was unchanged. I wondered how long she could keep up that act. As for my current husband being a lawyer, that was indeed true. His name is Ethan. A 36-year-old, still considered young in the legal profession but incredibly talented. Our relationship began when I sought legal counsel for a claim for damages following my divorce. Right after the divorce, I visited a law firm that was known for being strong in handling divorce cases. Ethan was the first lawyer I met there. Coincidentally, it turned out we frequented the same bouldering gym. I hadn't noticed him, but Ethan remembered seeing me there. I was surprised to discover that the lawyer handling my case shared my hobby and frequented the same place. As we shared this common interest and Ethan provided sincere legal advice, my trust and comfort in him grew. Then one day, he confessed, "I've always been intrigued by the serious expression you have when climbing at the gym." Our relationship blossomed from there, and we eventually got married. Knowing everything about my past, including my previous marriage and divorce, made things easier. I felt protected and profoundly happy to marry Ethan, who made me feel so cherished. 2 weeks later, as promised, I visited my parents' home with my husband. There, I found Emily, fully made up, and Aiden with a bitter expression. There was also a baby in the crib, who was indeed adorable. My mother was watching the baby, so we sat in the living room to chat. "Nice to meet you. I'm Emily, her sister." "Nice to meet you. I'm Ethan, married to Sarah." Ethan introduced himself, his posture professional, despite being in the role of a husband at that moment. He was in a suit, with a badge and a businesslike smile. "You're a lawyer?" "Yes, I am." Emily looked up at Ethan with her characteristic gaze, but he maintained his professional demeanor without breaking his smile. "When did you and my sister get married?" "She didn't tell me anything." "It was 2 months ago." "Oh, so it's been more than half a year since the divorce." "Yes, there's no issue." "Did you know that my sister got divorced?" Emily continued, despite Aiden looking visibly upset next to her. Perhaps she thought I had kept my divorce a secret from Ethan. "Sarah, you brought a gift, right?" "Thank you." Emily turned to me, probably frustrated that the conversation wasn't going as she had planned. That was probably her intention from the beginning, so it's natural for her to say that. But I wasn't about to let things go so easily. "Yes, here you go." I took out a tea-colored envelope from my bag, placed it on the coffee table, and slid it towards Emily and Aiden. Emily quickly grabbed it and looked inside. "What is this?" she grumbled, pulling out the contents of the envelope. Of course, she thought it contained money, but it didn't, so her reaction is understandable. It was a set of documents for a claim of damages. It was against both Emily and Aiden. As written here, I'm claiming damages from both of you. "Now what are you talking about?" Emily raised her voice. "It's quite straightforward. I can still sue you too for mental suffering due to the affair you had after the divorce." When I first consulted Ethan at the law firm, he informed me of this time frame, and I thought I had plenty of time to make my move. I thought I'd wait for the right time to make the claim. If an appropriate opportunity doesn't arise, I can always file the claim whenever it suits me. So, there's no need to rush. Just because your husband is a lawyer. Claiming damages is my right. The amount I claimed from each of them was $30,000. Given Emily's current unemployment, Aiden might end up paying $60,000, but that wasn't my concern. Whether Aiden would actually pay was another matter. Is this because you're bitter about being dumped by Aiden? If I give him back to you, will you forget about the damages? What are you talking about, Emily? Emily blurted out nonsensically, to which even Aiden couldn't stay silent. However, Emily doesn't even spare a glance at Aiden. "The damages claim is for your affair, so it doesn't just go away," I stated firmly, causing Emily's face to twist unpleasantly. "Then, give me your lawyer husband," she retorted, making an absurd suggestion. "What about Aiden then?" "I'm saying I'll give your husband back. It's unfair to come at me with a lawyer as your husband. Let's swap husbands, then I'll pay the damages." Emily, probably operating on impulse and driven by her desire to outdo me, seemed genuinely serious with her proposal. In the end, she just wants to take what's mine and bask in a sense of superiority. That's her top priority, so even if it seems strange to others, for Emily, it's the most important thing. And now, because she's excited, she's even less aware of how odd her statements are. "Are you really married to Sarah? Because, Ethan, you're quite handsome, and you must be quite popular," Emily continued, resorting to her usual tactics of flirtation. From her past experiences, she probably understands that acting that way can win over men. I proposed to Sarah because she's beautiful, not just in appearance but in spirit as well.
What?
Emily responded in a low voice, briefly and sharply, to Ethan, who had spoken without breaking his sales smile. Her coquettish upward glance had faded into a blank expression, but Ethan remained silent, still smiling as if waiting for her to retort. Seeing this as an opportunity while she was quiet, I decided to press the advantage. With that in mind, I took out an envelope from my bag again and spread its contents across the coffee table. "What is this?" Aiden muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. There are lots of photos spread out before him on the table. The photos showed Emily in intimate poses with various men. 7 in total. Of course, all different from Aiden. As you can see, Emily, you were involved with several men before and even after marrying Aiden.
What do you mean by this?
Aiden demanded, grabbing Emily's shoulder in a mix of shock and anger.
Ouch, stop it.
What are you talking about?
I'm telling you it hurts. Wow. Unbelievable.
Emily, grabbed by the shoulder, scratched Aiden's arm with her long nails. Aiden probably had never seen this side of Emily before. He held his scratched, red welt with a look of surprise on his face. From my perspective, this kind of behavior from Emily is just the tip of the iceberg.
You're kidding me. After all that, you have the nerve to harm me.
Aiden exclaimed and pushed Emily away in a burst of anger, causing her to fall onto the sofa. I was a bit surprised to see this rough side of Aiden, as I had never seen it before. It was an aspect of him that he never showed while we were dating. Well, it's probably a side I didn't need to see anyway.
Ouch. That's awful. You can't just hit a girl like that. I'm going to sue you. This is my line. How can you even act like this now? Don't touch me. This is domestic violence. You're a criminal. Shut up.
Ignoring the tumultuous scene of Emily and Aiden grappling and arguing, I stood up. I had no desire to witness their ugly squabble. And I knew that if things escalated further, the situation would only worsen. Emily was likely to become more violent, throwing things around and lashing out physically. Aiden might react even more aggressively. Leaving seemed the wisest course of action. I don't want to get caught up in their mess, and I've already done everything I needed to do here today. Are we done here? Ethan asked as we both stood up to leave. Emily and Aiden are still yelling at each other, creating a scene like a battleground.
There's nothing more for us here.
Well, that's true. Thank you for coming with me. When I thanked him, Ethan flashed a grin, showing his teeth. Ethan responded with a genuine, non-businesslike smile. I deeply cherished the smile of him.
Let's go home. Sounds good.
As we left my parents' home, Ethan reached out his hand. I gratefully took his hand, matching our strides as we walked away together. After divorcing Aiden, I decided to file for damages against both him and Emily, so I hired a detective agency to investigate Emily's conduct. They mainly traced Emily's relationships with men before my divorce, and although these were not directly related to my divorce, they also looked into her ongoing relationships. I thought it best to do everything I could. My goal was to utterly defeat Emily and make her never want to involve herself with me again. Considering Emily's past, the idea of her having a sincere relationship with Aiden, who only wanted to take what was mine, was just unthinkable. So, just to be sure, I had it investigated, and as expected, or however you might say it, a 3-day investigation confirmed her involvement with 3 men. I occasionally requested similar investigations afterward, and each time, they produced results, confirming relationships with a total of 7 men. Some of these relationships started before her marriage to Aiden, while others began afterward. The private investigator suggested that the actual number of men Emily was involved with could be even higher. It seems that she was that unrestrained. I made sure to send evidence of these affairs, including photos, to the homes of the married men involved. It was important that Emily faced the consequences of her actions as an adult. For my part, I made sure to include in the damages claim documents that I had evidence of the affair, ensuring Emily and Aiden couldn't deny their actions. I had recorded the conversation when their affair was first revealed. I had to do it that way, otherwise Emily would try to escape by lying again. My experience with them had taught me to anticipate their tactics and take the necessary steps to protect myself. This time, I was acting not just out of hurt but with a resolve to ensure they faced the full consequences of their actions. This time, I was determined not to let either Emily or Aiden get away with their behavior. I also included in Emily's claim documents a warning that any further harassment or defamation would result in criminal charges. My decision not to hold back anymore was a firm declaration of my intention to no longer tolerate their behavior. Sometime after that incident, the damages I had claimed from both Emily and Aiden were deposited into my account. Emily managed to pay her part of the settlement after being sued for damages by several wives of the men she had affairs with. Our parents had to step in to help cover her dues and sort out her affairs. They decided it was time to stop letting Emily run wild and started monitoring her closely, making her work part-time jobs at a local clinic and a store. Most of her earnings went to repaying the parents, leaving her with little time for anything other than work and childcare. It also turned out that a paternity test revealed that Aiden wasn't the father of Emily's child. Learning of his wife's betrayal and that the child he had adored wasn't his, Aiden was deeply hurt and ended up divorcing Emily. The rumor in the hospital of him being the fool who left his wife for her sister, only to raise another man's child, damaged his reputation. I heard from former colleagues that the shock led to his mental breakdown and eventual resignation from the hospital. Now unable to practice medicine, he's reportedly working low-paying jobs to make ends meet. What they do or how they live is no longer of any concern to me. They should live with the regret of their actions. A harsh sentiment, perhaps, but the only one I can muster for them. In my life, things have been looking up. After marrying Ethan, I took my time to find a suitable job and secured a position as a nurse at a well-regarded hospital. Even before, I was working at a private clinic for a few days a week in a relaxed manner, but thinking about preparing for the future and wanting to earn a proper income, I took my time and carefully went through the job hunting process, which has led to me working under satisfying conditions now. Living without any contact with Emily has brought me a sense of relief and fulfillment. My days are enriching, both professionally and personally, as Ethan and I enjoy a happy, relaxed life together. We were even discussing starting a family when we discovered that I was pregnant. Ethan was overjoyed, shaking with excitement, and started reading every pregnancy and parenting magazine he could find. He seems to be becoming more knowledgeable about pregnancy life than even me, who is pregnant. It's a joy to spend each day filled with happiness and smiles. I just want to keep on living with a smile, always.
I'm looking forward to a future that promises even more happiness and fun-filled days.